My name is Sophie. I'm actually Henry's sister, and I did GCSE drama and I achieved a grade 8. I actually did personally get most of my marks from the written paper. I was not the strongest performer, um, and so I really kind of relied on the written paper to pull my marks up in that way. So Henry asked me to film a quick video, just kind of talking you guys through the night before, some last minute tips, some helpful information that you might have for your GCSE drama exam. Firstly, good luck. I know it is scary. Exams are scary. Try and relax a bit if you can. A little bit of last minute revision is nice and good, but yeah, just make sure you're taking the time to relax as well because it can be a stressful subject. So I actually have with me one of my mock papers in which I achieved a grade 8 for GCSE drama. So I'm just going to kind of talk through it section by section and kind of talk through any tips and advice that I have. So for section A, my biggest tip is, look, it is 4 marks, and if you just revise and I'm confident on your stage types and your theatre roles, you will be fine. I made a mistake in this paper. I only got 2 out of 4 marks. Those are 4 marks that should be relatively easy for you to achieve, as long as you just make sure you take the time to revise the different theatre stage types and the different theatre roles, and also just make sure you're confident on upstage, downstage, stage left, stage right. Because even as well, if you start off with these 4 questions and you're confident and you know them, that sets you up with the confidence for section B and section C, which can be a little more difficult. So section B. So on section B was definitely my strongest section out of all of them. My first big advice for the first one will normally be set or costume. Make sure that everything you're saying is contextual to the time period. So for me personally, I did Blood Brothers. So I made sure that I was very confident on the late 70s Liverpool, what that would have been like. But depending on what text you're doing and when that's set, you need to be confident on that time period for yours. Make sure that you're using specific descriptive vocabulary. So the answer I have in front of me, I achieved 3 out of 4 marks. This was for a set. You need to make sure that you're using terminology such as downstage right, downstage left, and you need to be talking about the backdrop, what the backdrop was made of. I used. And if you're talking about costumes, you need to make sure you're confident on materials, fit, all of these different specific vocabulary to describe it. You don't want to be generic. You want to be making sure throughout the exam that you're using drama specific vocab. And then for the second part, when discussing the line that you performed, so this answer that I have here, I achieved 6 out of 8 marks on. Now, the main thing that I lost marks for in this that I really just want to say, because I think it's so important, is that you need to be making sure that everything is contextualized in the play. So I said a few times, for example, if I was playing the role of Mrs. Lyons, I would make her say this in this sort of voice. I would make her, if I read out a sentence I have here, I would say, for example, I have in this paper, this would help me to portray to the audience that I'm losing my mind, as it shows I've lost control of my emotions. And my teacher's written here because of what? You need to make sure you're linking it back to the play to show that you have that really strong knowledge. So I need to show that I was losing my emotions because I was stressed about Eddie, or, it needs to be really specific to the play. You need to show that you've got a knowledge of the text you studied. Like in English, you have a text that you're really familiar with, and they want to see that you're familiar with that play here. So make sure that you're linking things back to the context of the play. Eddie feels this way because things like that. So when you're saying an emotion that you're going to portray, just make sure that it's clear why you're seeking to portray that emotion. Then the next one I have is for the extract. And the answer here I actually achieved full marks on. And I think one of the most important things that I would say for this thing is that I would just go through it bit by bit, almost not line by line, but section by section, just making sure that you're giving a detailed response of how you would portray it for each thing. You need to make sure that you're using drama-specific vocabulary again here. So you need to be talking about your vocal techniques and your physical techniques. So make sure you're confident on pitch, tone, and pace and how you would use those things and what they would mean for vocal techniques. And for physical, it's more, gesture, gait, posture, facial expression, things like that. I personally found it quite helpful to look at a thesaurus, weirdly, but make sure that I had lots of words that could describe pitch, lots of words that could describe tone and pace, just so that you don't end up repeating, sad tone. I would use a sad tone, and make sure again when you're using an emotional word that you link that back to the text and kind of what is going on there. And I would also make sure that whatever you're writing, this applies kind of to the whole of section B, important to be creative, but also in drama, you do need to remember that it does need to be grounded. It needs to be realistic for a stage production. You know, would you actually see that in the theatre, especially with set design and costume? It's important to remember that. And it also needs to be justified within the play. So you need to make sure that, again, links back to saying, you know, why does the character feel this way? You need to justify your creative choices by linking them in the play. So I would just make sure to take each scene line by line. I would read the extract multiple times. I'm sure you've had this advice before. Just read it a lot, and as well make a note in your head or even on a bit of paper if you want, you know, what is the context of this scene, what's happened before, what's happened after. Make sure you know your story really well. It might be worth reading a summary or just make sure you're familiar with the play. And then section C, I don't know, for me personally anyway, I found section C by far the hardest. I found it really, really difficult compared to the others. But the main mistake that I made was I would be really, really confident on my description and then really lacking in my analysis of what that meant. So I would describe a scene really, really well that I'd seen, but I would really offer a poor level of analysis of what that actually meant for me and a poor level of evaluation. So you need to make sure you're analysing how is that meant to make the audience feel and how did it make the audience feel. You saw this play, you know, for me anyway, I watched The Woman in Black. And I would write, you know, a really detailed description. So I achieved 11 out of 12 for my description and only 9 out of 20 for my analysis, because that was where I was really lacking with this particular answer, for example. So I went to see The Women in Black and I would describe a scene that I'd watched that was really scary. And I'd say, you know, the director chose to do this, this and this and this. And I'd describe that all really well. But what I was missing was the sentences such as, and I could tell that the audience, you know, felt very scared by this, or the effect of this was a great fear for the audience, or I believe the director's intention was to create fear for the audience and that was effective. When I saw the performance, I could feel the audience felt scared, or I heard people gasping, or, you know, if you're doing a sad play, I heard people crying, or funny, I heard people laughing. So you need to be talking about what the effect was that the director was aiming for, and you also need to be evaluating how effective you personally think that was. Make sure that you have key moments from whatever play you've seen that you're confident on the characters, confident on the storyline, all of these things. Just make sure that you know both your text that you studied, the play you studied, and your live performance really, really well. You're really confident on both of them. Yeah, those are my main tips. I think the main thing, if I could say anything, last minute revision. I would revise all of your drama specific vocab. So I would revise all of like the stage types, theatre roles, all things like that, because you just need to be confident on those. Section A, 4 easy marks. Just try your best to be confident on those. Make sure you're analysing everything and make sure that everything you're saying is grounded and justified by what happens in the play. Because it's no use saying Eddie was upset here if you can't say why that was. And you could do such a great description of how you would act upset, but you need to be able to explain why that's important and why that's significant in the play. So that's my advice. Good luck. You've already done your coursework performances, or I think most people will have by now. So just try and take a deep breath. It's just this exam, and then, yeah, drama GCSE is over. But yeah, try and have fun writing as well, because it is, you know, theatre is nice and something to be passionate about. So good luck.